Welcome to the Red Pill News. Take the red pill, take the red pill, take the red pill. So, life is like a bowl of cherries. It's not actually. Life is like more like a 55-gallon drum full of poop, something like that. That you guys stick your head in every once in a while, and then you are truly back in reality of things. So some people have it better than others. Some people have it worse than others. And some people are falling from the top to the bottom. And then that's probably even worse if you're at the bottom the entire time, because if you're at the bottom the entire time, you kind of know how to adjust your life and do what you do. But as these people fall, they start losing their minds, and then they go out and shoot people and do crazy stuff. And this is what we're seeing in the media. And it's men who are being pushed to the point where there's nothing left for them. And this is a huge problem in the United States. And it's spreading to the world that you're punished for being a male, especially if you're a single male who is over 40. The governments don't like that. They want you to have all kinds of people in tote and dependence. They give you even breaks if you do. But I'll tell you, it's a cold, cruel, unforgiving world for a lot of men out there. And what I see in the media is like the opposite. So they don't honor people's pain no matter who they are. They're playing one side over another. But certainly there's, I was talking to a friend of mine, girl. She's in a relationship. They love each other long term, man. And she's against marriage. She thinks that marriage is a bad deal, and this is a woman talking where, in America, especially if you're like in a place like New York, if you get married, I mean, pretty much if you're the guy, it's a bad deal for you. I mean, that marriage ends, you are screwed. And I have friends, I've never been married. I'll say that. I have friends that have been, went right through the meat grinder, and not just right after the marriage, not just a month or two after the divorce. I'm talking about ongoing, back into court, back into court, back into court, to take more and more and more, to the point where one of my friends, who shall remain nameless, this guy drives an old car. He's doesn't even have a place to live right now. I mean, is in a position of desperation, and he's not the only one. He's not the only one that's suffering through this. But it's just a damn shame that, yeah, life isn't fair. And the only reason why he hangs around, he's down in the city, the only reason why he hangs around New York is that because he's got kids there and he loves his kids. I mean, they're basically grown now, but he loves his kids. And there's a time that you have to say, my life is important too, and when you're born and you live your life and then you die, especially if you're male, talk to people in those hospice care centers that have these men go into these beds and they die alone. After all you do for people, you could have done everything for it. You could have had a couple marriages by then and had lots of kids and whatever. No, because men are vilified in this world. And it's a world where there are victims, but there's a growing sentiment these days, especially, that's anti-male. You see it in commercials where men are made out to be stupid idiots, right? These fools. And who is the inventors? Who are the innovators? Who are the hard workers? You actually think that these power plants would run and all these other things. So, but then also men are regarded as lowly utilities. And once that utility is useless, they get cast aside and people move on. It's not like it was back in the day when you were in a relationship and then, you both kind of had a symbiotic relationship. You both relied on each other. Governments have stepped in and they have negatively enabled. And now it's to a point where Men are scared. They don't want to get married. They don't even want to have long term relationships. The internet has made everything in the here and now for people. There's people hooking up with high school romances from back in the day who are like in their 40s and 50s, destroying their marriages or whatever because the temptation is there. The ease of access, right? That's a whole different issue. But I'm just looking at people and I see people struggling. I'm between places, but I'm between places because I didn't want to sign a lease because I didn't know where the hell I was going to be. And I want to be settled, but I don't want to be like, stuck in a yearly lease. And so it was more of a business decision. But the struggle is real. And you see people starting to live out of their storage units, man. That's no way to be. And these people are forsaken by the system that they support. All the while this is going on, you're paying thousands of bucks to your government. You guys wouldn't believe what I pay to New York State in taxes, just New York State alone in taxes. This is why people are leaving. And man, for your monthly tax bill, what you're going to pay, that's the state. You could pay a mortgage somewhere else and not have to pay all those taxes. And then people are surprised. Oh, I'm shocked. Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, doing nothing to keep people in New York. Nothing. Instead, oh man, talk about the red pill. This guy got caught red-handed, and then they played their Me Too on him, didn't they? One came out, another one came out. Oh, he tried to kiss me. Oh, he kissed my hand. Oh, he suggested we play strip poker. These people coming out with, not like, he tried to rape me, you know, like what they said, that one said about Biden, that type of thing, or Bill Clinton, his multiple sexual advances on women. What about 36 women came out against him saying that he sexually molested them and raped them, a little different than the Me Too, whatever you want to call it now, because it's really come down to alienation, right? Not just a phenomenon in Roswell, alienating people to the point where they don't even want to look at you. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to look at you. So it's like the whole feminist movement. Women wanted to work. It was important to work. They fought for work. Now 80% of all women who work are unhappy. They don't want to work. They'd want to raise a child, raise a family, be the homemaker. It's in your blood. There's nothing wrong with that either. Is that sexist? No. It's just is what it is. It's what you want in your soul. So you want to follow what other people do. That leads you to unhappiness all the time, every day, all day long. So we have a separation between the sexes. And you have a millennial generation that lives their lives through the internet, through their texting and through their apps that they use of who they want to be with and what. And it's become, the internet has driven more people underground because it's such a judgmental world of what you look like initially. That first picture that you see when you click on someone's thing, boom. This is why all these people out there making, using filters to make themselves look totally different than how they look, because they're trying to attract something, right? It used to be you go out and you meet people, and no matter what you look like, you meet people. And those people can then determine if they want to carry on or not. Now it's a whole sheltered world of I'm hiding behind this device. But when also, sure, people can be really interested in one another without meeting them. But also when you meet someone, it's the chemicals in your bodies that make up that decision on if you want to be with that person or not, or if it's going to happen or not. It's hurting the very thing, the very nature of what people are supposed to be when they come together as a union of just even hanging out. You know, it's gotten in between, right? The cell phone has become a wedge. People sitting there together instead of having that conversation, they're looking at their phone. But I see what's going on out there, and it's very obvious to me. I also see, I read a lot, and I see that this article, which is really funny because it strikes at another angle to the things I'm talking about, right? So the headline is my ex didn't want to have kids with me because of my anxiety disorder, and it shattered my self worth. So already, this chick's like, I have an anxiety disorder that you must deal with because when you end up in a relationship with someone, man, if they have all kinds of mental problems, those problems become your problems. I used to tell people, don't date someone with more problems of your own. I just don't listen to my own advice. But that's what I used to tell people. So this is a very interesting article because these articles don't strike at the truth. They strike at the fluff, right? And they want to be very namby pamby instead of point A to point B. About the issue here. Okay, so having an anxiety disorder is something that's challenging to live with daily, especially for the people around you. From the overthinking, the panic attacks, and the triggers, it can be something that debilitates you on a semi regular basis. And while anxiety disorders are difficult to cope with, it's even more challenging when people around you don't fully understand what you go through. Understand. I should read it like Andrew Cuomo because he always talks like people are so unbelievably stupid that he has to really hang on every syllable. I like it. I like it. I'm using that stuff. I'm using what he says. I'm learning from Andrew Cuomo. Do you know he came out with the greatest line I have ever heard in my life for the existence of a lie. He said, I only lied to protect the truth. Oh my God. Did someone write that for him or did he come up with that on his own? I think that's fantastic. I'm going to put that on bumper stickers and t shirts. I only lied to protect the truth. That's almost the Leonard Skinner song. Don't ask me no questions. I won't tell you no lies. I think that ranks very high. So I'm going to keep that with me for the rest of my life. So anxiety disorder. So yeah, when people have disorders, it's their problem. Those problems can become other people's problems who are around them. In this day and age, the society, the politically correct world puts pressure on you to have responsibility for everybody else, especially if they have these issues, right? It's like those baby on board signs that people used to put on their cars back in the day. Baby on board, baby on board. All of a sudden, you're putting some kind of responsibility in my lap that I need to drive differently because you have a baby in the car. You know, that's the way a lot of people interpret it anyway. And then I would just honk my horn, beep, 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 hey baby, woohoo, what's up? You know what I mean? Say, give that baby a big shout out at 70 miles an hour. Yeah, wow, baby on board. Then people started making other signs that was mocking that. Was terrible, man. I remember those age. I remember those days. But good. So you have to have responsibility for somebody else's disorder. All right. Now, if you don't understand it, there'll be people to tell you that you're a horrible cretin, and there are also people. All right, so it's Now, oh, listen to this, right? So let me read this whole sentence because this goes right to the core of the BS that I'm talking about. And while anxiety, let me read it as Cuomo. I can't help I see it in my goddamn eyes. I can't stop it. And while anxiety disorders are difficult to cope with, it is even more challenging when people around you don't fully understand what you go through. It's even harder when they use it as a tool to manipulate and gaslight you. Now, that's what the buzzwords are today. Manipulate, gaslight. You know how many times I hear that in the course of a day from my exes, man? Manipulating, gaslight, creep, all these words, right? But isn't it interesting? Oh, I have this problem, but I'm going to act out and whatever. Well, I know two people who were in a relationship. The guy was in a relationship with a girl who was bipolar, and then sometimes she'd just completely flip out for nothing. She took a knife and stabbed the dude in the chest. He lived, but she was upset. She broke up with him because she was upset because he didn't understand. Well, you didn't understand the knife going through your chest coming from a person holding it, pushing it through your chest. Knife didn't get there by itself. It didn't just float over. No poltergeist going on there. It's someone who took it because they're out of their mind at the time and bah! So you can decide not to be with that person, right? You have to, they should come with a tag, like, people saying they should have their vax tags of the who has the vaccine and all that for the COVID, right? They should come with like a tag, like how trucks have like explosives on the outside, or carrying gas or nuclear bomb, anything. A warning, a warning. Usually, it's the male in the family who will warn the guy who dates the daughter. My daughter's really screwed up. You don't want to be with her. Believe me, buddy. And then these guys always say, her father's on my side. Oh, you idiot. You just got sucked in. Uh, you done fell in the hole and they're covering it with dirt, you know? So here we go. I was first diagnosed with general anxiety disorder, which people say there's no such thing, right? There's there's a lot of science out there that says, well, sometimes you put a label on something and people have to live up to it. You know what I mean? There are legitimate disorders, that's for sure. But this is one that I've been in debate with many people, and also I have many doctors that also believe that it's something that doesn't help anyway. Anyway, I was first diagnosed with general anxiety disorder, which I think at this point everybody has. If you want to put a label on what we all have right now in this country, in this world, with COVID and everything and all the stuff going on, and politicians you can never trust. You know what I mean? All of them, each one that says that they lie, and they're all lying. Each one says that they lie, they're all lying. You know what I mean? You can't trust not one of them, but you have to. So kind of just go with it. You know what I mean? I was first diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. I wrote this like 9 times. When I was first 14, and as a teenager, it was something. It was I was very open about with everyone. For sure, you run around. I have general anxiety disorder. Oh, I'm going crazy. I have anxiety. You need to do things for me. Oh, you don't like what I'm doing? You're gaslighting and hating on me. It's stimulating my disorder. In fact, it was something I hid from my friends. It was something that she was open about, but then it was also something that she hid from her friends because she didn't want them to think she was weird. Let me read that again, man. Do I have a disorder? As a child, it was something I was very open about. In fact, it was something I hid from my friends. There's something wrong about this whole sentence, man. Let's move on. Let's move on. My relationship traumatized me into believing that no one out there would love and support me because of my mental health disorder. I started to even stigmatize myself, thinking that it was too hard. I was too hard to love. So here's a person telling him, I caught myself doing this, man. Not that, but this. Like worrying about things and also going over negative things in my mind, that things I took issue with other people, things that they didn't live up to my own expectations, or someone who took advantage of a situation, things like that, and kind of think about it and go over it in my mind as I'm harping on this, and I'm like, this is just causing me distress and discomfort. It's not good. It's not good health to even think about stuff like that. And the only thing you could do is just know better and move on, right? So she says, as I got older, my symptoms and triggers began to surface more often in my life. I worked with my therapist specifically on ways to combat my anxiety. How many therapists out there are really audited by the government as to what work they do, if they're doing good for their patients? I wonder, because I know of someone who had been to several, and some of them were so, and she, as a teenager, and some of them were so terrible for her, and actually put her on a bad path. These especially kids or teenagers look up to these therapists, as someone of knowledge. But really, it's just going to school and getting a degree. I mean, what kind of audit process is there for you to understand if they're good, aside from word of mouth and this person's good, or maybe that person is good for one type, but maybe they're not good for another, whatever problems you got, right? Just something as I'm thinking about as I worked with my therapist specifically on ways to combat my anxiety, right? But as anyone with a mental health disorder knows, some days are good and some days aren't bad. Just from reading these two paragraphs, painstakingly, it took me 28 minutes to just doing this. It's showing me that this woman's living with this huge crutch, and she's defining herself by her disorders. Listen to what she's saying. Like, I worked with my therapist specifically on ways to combat my anxiety, but as anyone with a mental health disorder knows, some days are good. And then she taking you to school, as anyone with a mental health disorder knows, some days are good and some days are bad, or you know there's no perfect cure. Yeah, everybody. Some days are good, some days are bad. Everybody. If there's somebody out there who's floating along and every day is great, you have to look what they're doing. You know, because that's just unnatural. I mean, you can be content. Is that so? Here we go. As an adult, I've also gotten a lot more comfortable identifying with and talking about my anxiety disorder with everyone that I meet, even the cashiers at the store. It definitely isn't my entire identify. See, it definitely isn't my entire identify, but she's saying that it's a huge part of her. This issue is a huge part of her. So it's I think of my friend in the wheelchair who's got, who had a disorder, and his legs are undeveloped, right? Life in a wheelchair. Never knew what it was like to walk. This guy's got 3 jobs. He works at a supermarket as a cashier. He works at a bank as a bank teller, and I don't know whatever he does. He's also a comedian. I run into him every once in a while, and no pun intended. And then he doesn't harp on a disorder. He doesn't harp on his legs. He doesn't harp on those what other people would think is limitations. But this guy has become one with the whole situation. I've never heard the guy reference being handicapped or having an issue. So when I read stuff like this woman's entire identity has ended up in this disorder that she thinks she has, right? That someone told her that she has, right? So She talked about it with friends. She talked about it with others, and had similar struggles and issues. Whatever. It was nice to finally feel like people understood my journey, and to also help those that didn't understand their own. So it's kind of like here you are in a group, and they're all discussing their symptoms, anxieties, or other stuff that's going on, and what makes them anxious. And then it's become a center point, right? So getting into a relationship with someone like this, you need to understand the center point to their life is this, what they think is an anxiety disorder, right? So she went through all that and she said, all right, it was nice to finally feel like people understood my journey. I have to read it again because will make sense if I take it out of context. It was nice to finally feel like people understood my journey, and to also help those that didn't understand their own. That was until I began dating someone who made me feel like I was broken for having a mental health disorder. Ah. So instead of seeking out a guy who's going to be all like, I take you how unconditional love, and I love you how you are. You know, people that drive Subarus and Priuses. Yes, you could define guys by what they drive. You know, you want a good, solid guy. You want a dude who drives like one of those high-end pickup trucks, man. He works. That guy works hard, right? You want to end up with something limp? You go with that Prius. They even drive like it, man. I'm anti Prius and Subaru. I don't even like the Subaru commercial. I don't even know why the guy has to lisp in that commercial. It's a Subaru. I don't know. You know why? Because it's not appealing to guys like, hey, it's a Subaru. It's a Subaru. You get like a Joe Pesci on there. It's a Subaru. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. You need to have like that Colbert. It's a Subaru. Everybody go out and buy one. I met my ex-boyfriend through friends, so automatically this relationship has happened, turned tail, and I'm sure it wasn't a happy event for the guy, who basically walked into something that he had no idea, that I'm walking into someone who defines themselves by a disorder instead of their personality, and then trying to find solutions for that disorder. I mean, it just is what it is, right? You need to find solutions, and that's the whole thing. So anyway, I met my ex-boyfriend through friends in the neighborhood. So friends who in the neighborhood who that she grew up in this neighborhood. So friends that knew her from from whenever she started defining herself. Even before that, so before she was 14, what did she define herself as? And whenever someone says they have anxiety, because I get anxiety too, man. I have truckloads of it. Oh, I have a whole truck stop full of boxed cars, refrigerated, and out of anxiety coming and going daily. You just deal with it, you deal with it. I like to hit the heavy bag. I like to listen to music. I like to go for nice drives in the country and get out there. Yeah, there's things that you do. All right. So she met her ex-boyfriend through friends, and I guess they didn't warn the guy or anyone. We instantly hit it off and were drawn to each other. At that point in my life, I wanted someone who was fun and exciting, who could open my life up to new adventures and possibilities. So here's this woman saying, I'm looking for someone to do all these things for me. I'm not going to go out on adventures on my own. I'm not going to go out and open my own self up. So she's in this room with a closed door, and she wants someone to come open the door and say, come with me on this adventure, right? Which is putting a lot on somebody, automatically, that it's someone who doesn't have any responsibility for themselves. I'm sure she's been told enough by now that she has zero responsibility for herself, the things that she does, whoever she hurts, and whatever she does in this world, zero responsibility, right? Because I know the way these things work. So for the first year or so, we were great. We traveled, we laughed, we made memories, and we explored the world. Who do you think paid for it, man? We talked about a future together and thought about getting married and having kids. You think they? It's natural if you're in a relationship with someone you love them. I mean, you talk about all that when you're young enough. You want to have kids or whatever, and you want to do all these things. It's great, right? You need a plan. The system's not set up though to facilitate justice between two people. It's lopsided because it was lopsided before. Now it's gone the other way because when there were men who abused women and then they had kids and they took off. Now it's gone the other way. Now it's an overreach where it needs to kind of center somewhere where it's reasonable. Here we go. But look at Canada. Let me add that in Canada, if you date someone for a year, they can get palimony out of you. That woman can get that money out of you without a kid because you dated them for a year. This is what's going on in other countries that are close to the U.S. That there are people who are watching this happen. And why do you think the marriage rates have plummeted? And why do you think that divorce rates, have skyrocketed? So here we go. But slowly, I started to notice that when my anxiety was at its worst, my ex would become abrasive and angry. He would tell me to cut it out or that I needed to learn to relax. Oh my God, the worst possible things you can say to someone. Cut it out, learn to relax. Oh man, I remember saying lighten up to mine, and I think I would have started World War III. Why don't you lighten up? Bah! He would tell me to cut it out. Well, that I needed to learn to relax. Horrible. Should have called the police. Should have called 911. Yeah, my boyfriend just told me to cut it out and learn to relax. Oh my God, we can't have that. We're gonna get there right away. We're gonna tase the guy a few times for saying that. If I was having a panic attack or I was I was in my own head about things happening around us, he would immediately shut me down and shut me out. Obviously, the guy at this point has had enough, and it comes down to complacency that you don't want to bail when you have something invested, but if you're in a toxic situation and clearly just by listening to her, keep in mind, this is entirely her side, not the guy, which is why I think is very interesting how it's printed like this. It's in Yahoo Life, which is also interesting, right? But the guy's done. When it gets like that, you just can't take it anymore. And so here's the next sentence. She says it started to become really toxic. The people who are the abusers will often accuse you of what they themselves is doing. If you've noticed, right? So much. I even started to have physical symptoms like body hives and stress rashes. So she's breaking out in hives. He's telling her to calm down. It's time these guys go their opposite ways, right? Despite this, I stayed with him, scared to leave someone that I was in love with. So it's on her. I was in love with him. I didn't like him telling me to find a hobby. She's horrible. So I stayed with him. She stayed with him because it also was anxiety, afraid to leave the guy, right? Because it had become something that she got used to, complacency. I had hoped that things would change and he would become more understanding. I began sending him research articles and studies on how to support loved ones. Oh my God, with anxiety and mental health disorders. But nothing seemed to help. Yeah, you get an email. Listen, I know you're so fucked up, but here's this article that's going to help you. This dude's trying to work. Whatever he's doing, or he gets a text message. Here's a link because you're messed up. Oh, oh my God. I want to talk to this guy, man. We got to have this guy on the show. The breaking point? We were out to dinner to celebrate him finishing his master's degree. Oh my God. So the guy's in school. He's getting his master's degree. He's got to study. He's got to go do all this, and all of a sudden he's got this going on. It doesn't sound like Mr. Wife Beater with a master's degree. He's got this going on. All right. How about they agree to take a break for a while he finished? Maybe he's under stress. Oh, I remember what it was like going back to get my degree when I was 40. And you know, when you don't do, I had to do algebra too. Let me tell you, man, when you haven't done algebra since you were in high school and you're in your 40s, and the lack of interest in algebra, especially compounded the fact that I never had to use it for anything in my entire life, it actually was very stressful doing that with a 40-hour job on top of that, with having to take care of a house and, you know, my ex's kids and doing all that. It was, and then I had to hear I was doing it for me and not anybody else. So it's my deal, right? And everything. Yeah, I get this dude. I don't even have to talk to him. I am this guy. I get him, man. Although I don't have a master's degree. We were out to dinner to celebrate him finishing his master's degree. Isn't that funny? Almost like she even resents it. Yeah. When I began to feel a bit uncomfortable and anxious. Yeah, because the spotlight wasn't on her. He wasn't handing her, you know, a diamond ring. He wasn't saying, oh, here's this or here's that, or, you know, how are you feeling, honey? Are you okay in the situation? You know, I mean, like, if you have to be like that with somebody, and you can never go out and have a good time because you're always conscious on what emotional roller coaster ride they're experiencing, which is going to ultimately flow onto you in your life at some point. There's no way to live your life, right? He could tell she was feeling uncomfortable and anxious because I start to withdraw a bit when I feel this way. So here they are celebrating his master's, a big occasion, huge achievement, and she is the one who's becoming the centerpiece with her so-called disorder and who is retracting and acting that way. She says, I feel this way. It happens obviously all the time. He looked across the table at me and told me I need to fix my anxiety. So they put fix in parentheses. Fix, the quotation marks, sorry. Fix my anxiety disorder and figure out how to get it together, also in quotations. Get it together. So basically, if you say anything to anybody that has any kind of disorder that is affecting you adversely, you're a monster. You don't understand, right? He said he would never want to bring children into the world with me, knowing they could grow up, end up like me. So obviously for the guy to say that to her, and he's realizing that his achievement was dwarfed by somebody's issue, right? Somebody's, and I'm not saying that she doesn't have anxiety. I'm saying that this woman's letting her anxiety rule her life and everybody's lives around her. So is that okay? And obviously, if she's working with a therapist for year after year after year and it's never changed or gotten any better, I think that she needs to find a different therapist. I don't really, I mean, there are therapists who can help you. There are therapists who can hurt you. So just leave it like that, which is why I think that there needs to be like an audit of the work that they do and if they've made any kind of headway or helped anybody at all, you know? I felt like someone had taken a brick and thrown it across the room into my chest. The wind was knocked out of me. I sat there bewildered before excusing myself to the bathroom, where I continued to cry in a public stall. After catching my breath, I washed my face and looked in the mirror and asked myself, is this what I really think a supportive partner is? The answer is no. For a while, my relationship traumatized me into believing that no one out there would love and support me because of my mental health disorder. I started to even stigmatize myself, thinking that I was too hard to love. Then I met my current partner. We've been together for about 2 years, and I bet you talk to this dude, he's ready to be like, take it outside. 2 years but from very early on, I was open about my anxiety issues. Not like the last one, right? Not like the last one where she had mentioned it. I told him about my past, my struggles, and all of my triggers. All of my triggers. You imagine having to live with someone or be with someone, be in a relation where you have to just watch every word you said. I've been through that, man. You have to watch every word you say, because God forbid something can trigger. Not only that, what you watch on TV together, what movie you watch together, anything can lead back to some kind of issue, story, or whatever to come right back to you, and it becomes a whole new freaking thing. Yeah. All right. She put it all out there for him. She did the right thing. She met a guy and said, listen, I'm messed up. I'm trying to get better. This is me. I have issues. You want to deal with it, deal with it. You don't, there's the door. That's the best way to do it, right? My partner is the most supportive, patient, and understanding person when it comes to my anxiety. When I'm on edge, he brings me back to center. When I'm having anxiety attacks, he does grounding exercises with me. He is her utility simp. You know what I mean? Like she needs that. She's not complete by herself, I guess. And isn't that part of the problem, that this woman always seems to look like she's looking for somebody else to complete her? Let me tell you, man, you need to be 100% on your own. And then you meet somebody else who's also 100%. Because if you meet someone who's that needy and who's that specific, and you need to dedicate your life to that person. I mean, one thing, you're head over heels and you want to help them and you're on a mission, more power to you. But it's another thing if you need to take from yourself so much that it damages you, and that's what happens a lot, because sometimes you can't fill those holes. Sometimes you can't complete people. In fact, you can never complete people. Only they can do it, right? When I'm on edge, he brings me back to center. That's interesting. And when I feel like my world is closing in on me, he holds me until I'm ready to talk. He is everything a good, loving, and supportive partner should be. I don't want this guy myself, and I'm not even gay. That's what you want to be. People to be nice to you and not use things against you. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have that. He's got a task. He's got multiple tasks. He can't sit there and even probably close his eyes at night without thinking, it's going to go off, right? Even if he can't fully understand, he's still right there. So after all of that, after all the stuff he does, he brings her back. He does grounding exercises. He helps her, brings her back from anxiety attacks. And the world's closing in. He holds her till she's ready to talk. After all of that, even if he can't fully understand, he's still right there. That's the issue. It's somebody who can never be satisfied, somebody that you can never complete because they are incomplete. They need to do that for themselves, and they need to get away from the people who are telling them they have all these disorders, that they're supposed to be disabled from these disorders, instead of going out there and solving the problem. My past has given me a sour taste for dating with anxiety. Oh, I bet we talk to any dude that's been what he's going to say, like, oh my God. And my ex may have brought me into a dark place, into understanding myself, but my ex may have brought me into a dark place in understanding myself. But I realized over time that I wasn't the problem. I'm not broken. My anxiety doesn't make me someone who is difficult to love. In fact, I'm perfect just the way I am. I just needed to find someone who sees as much anxiety and all. Isn't that funny? Obviously, if you're with somebody, you want them to accept you for what you are and not try to change you. I mean, that's not women, and that's not relationships between men and women. Every woman sees a man as a lump of clay that they can shape and shift to what they want out of it. And I would tell people straight up, God made me the way I am, and that's just the way it is. I mean, if you don't like something about me, there's nothing I can do about that. It's a simple thing. Listen to your fans. Don't listen to your critics. You know, when you allow people to dip out of their life into your life and give you a laundry list of all the things that's wrong with you, Meanwhile, before you met them, you didn't think you had all these things wrong with you. But they're saying it is. Your friends don't tell you that. Your family doesn't tell you that. Just the person is telling you all these negative things about yourself that you need to fix or whatever. And it always makes you feel like you're on the defensive and fighting against it. It's no way to live. And there are people who will never be happy. They need something to blame something on, especially for their unhappiness, instead of trying to find something that they either love to do or focus on. You know, I really feel for people that have any kind of disorder, right? But I think that, and I'm not the only one to say this, there are a lot of psychiatrists out there. There are a lot of people who believe that there's just, you know, too many names for these disorders when it comes down to, sure, we all suffer from very similar things, and some people it's more than others. You need to find a solution. Is a solution working with a therapist for your entire life and not finding, not being able to combat what's going on? You break your arm, you go to a doctor, they set it in a cast. After a while, your arm heals, and sure, it won't be 100% again, but it's going to be what it is. But the point is that you heal. When it comes to mental health, I don't see a lot of people trying to heal people. I see a lot of people charging $150 an hour to 300, 400 an hour. I mean, some of them get a lot more than that to keep them all going. It's like having a fat clinic with fat people coming in, and then you talk to them about being fat, but then when they leave, you give them a big bag of sweets and say, "I'll see you in a couple of days." You know, it's so the solution, to mental health. Frank Zappa, one of the most amazing musicians you'll probably even encounter in the world, who's now deceased. Frank Zappa said that one of the major problems facing America, this is back in the 80s, one of the major problems facing America and the world in the very near future, well, he said now to the near future, is people's mental health. Mental health. And it's the powers that be want to be able to use that mental health against you. The advertisers out there use it against you. They groom their ads to kind of talk to those stressors inside of you, talk to those anxieties, get you to go out there and buy their stuff, sometimes through fear and intimidation. You think politicians don't use fear and intimidation when they run? That you elect the other guy, there's going to be doom and gloom and nuclear war and we're going to die and everybody's dead? You don't think that affects it? So you need to be a centered person. And by the way, Frank Zappa was also a deprogrammer. A lot of people don't know about his life as a deprogrammer. These guys would go and kidnap Reverend Moon people and all these others that are part of these cults and bring them back to their families and bring them back to center again. So I'm wondering if there's some of that going on with these therapists. I'm wondering if there's, the things that they say and the things that they deal with people. I'm not talking about all of them, of course, but I'm talking about, how do you know that they're all good? How do you know? Obviously, they're not all going to be good. How do you know that they all have good intentions? And how do you know that they all want people to be cured of their issues and their problems or disorders or whatever they got, and be able to function and be part of our society, and be part of the solution? When I just heard this whole story was by somebody who was very, very self-centered. Obviously that therapist didn't say, well, you have to think of other people too. That should have been the first thing you said. You have a disorder. You've got some issues to work through, but you need to think about the people that you affect. Just like if you're a criminal and you go out and you stab somebody, are you the person getting stabbed is supposed to be like, oh, I'm sorry, you've got this problem, you're a sociopath, and you had to stab me, and I got no problem, I'm okay. Just can you call 911 for me? I'm gonna die. The victims that get created get passed over. And that's the biggest issue, I think, right now facing people. is that too many people think that they're victims. Meanwhile, there are real victims out there. So I'm going to end it with that note. I'm going to say prayers for India. I know that they are struggling in this COVID-19 crisis, and man, it just seems to be completely out of control. And every day I look for news that it's turning around, but now they don't even understand the numbers. They can't even count. So many people have just are either too afraid or locked inside or whatever. I don't know. It's a bad situation, but sending good energy to people there. And anybody in India listening, I know we got a bunch of listeners there. Don't think that we here in America that we don't care. We do, and we've sent aid, and we're there for you. And I know that there's a lot of plans in the works to get them even more support. So anyway, I'm going to end the show. Me on the Red Pill News. And this is United Public Radio Network, UPRN, talkradio.com, 107.5 New Orleans, 104.7 Pass Christian. I am saying good night, good luck, good love. I'll see you next week.